Welcome to the Baseball Utility Coaches Webinar. First, I want to thank all these great organizations for everything they do for the game of baseball and for always supporting baseball utility. And then a huge thanks to Kevin Kuzmanoff and Aaron Nikula for helping out with putting these webinars together. Tonight, we are pleased to introduce Brandon Buck, the CEO and founder of Infinite Strengths, and Derin McMains, the Director of Mental Skills for the San Francisco Giants. And I've been looking forward tonight since last week, and I'm really excited to learn a lot from Brandon and Darren. Both of these guys are very insightful and have a lot of great baseball knowledge to share with us. So thank you both for taking the time and making the effort to present to us tonight.
So guys, to start off this leadership in the mental game session, there's one word that's going to sum up my baseball journey personally. And you could see by the look on my face, I was determined, right? I had one goal in mind since I was in Little League, and that was to play one game in the major leagues, preferably to play at Wrigley Field in Chicago, my hometown. But no matter what, I was 100% committed and determined to play one game. So I had a question yesterday from a high school player in Chicago, actually. He asked, what separates the players from each level, especially guys that get stuck in pro ball and guys that get to go to the major leagues? And I can say this with 100% conviction, that there's no question that it's the mental side of the game that's going to separate us, because we're all talented and we all work our tails off. But it's the strength of the mind that really separates us. And for me personally, you can tell the kind of player I was, but I guess by the way I carried myself, my body language. Yeah, I had some rough days. I showed some emotion, but I really tried to stay calm and control my body language. But more importantly, the way I talk to myself. And I'm sure there's a lot of other major leaguers and professional ball players, even college ball players on here that can attest to that. But without further delay, guys, I'm going to introduce, or let Brandon Buck introduce himself. So Brandon, you're up, man.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for having me on. Really excited to be here. Adam said that I played at Purdue. I was a catcher there, but really I was just a bullpen guy. I was a guy that carried around the snack bag a lot. And, was really good at that. Not good enough to go out and play at another level. But when I graduated, was fortunate enough to move down to Arizona, and I coached high school baseball down there for 15 years. I was a head varsity coach there for 11. And then almost 4 years ago, my wife and I, we moved up to Boise, Idaho, which is where we reside now. And when I transitioned out coaching and teaching in high school, I transitioned into a leadership position. So I run my own business. I do leadership development. I work with athletes and organizations or businesses and companies, and we really just teach people how to be leaders and how to lead into problems and create opportunities out of challenges. And so when I was asked to come and speak, the first thing that came to my mind is this concept of success. So my question for you is, what does it mean to be successful? And when you think about that, we all want it, right? Everyone on this call, there's close to 100 people that are on here, and you're on here because you want to be successful. But what does that look like? What does that mean? How can you describe it? In my 18, 19 years of playing, coaching, working with athletes and companies, I ask everyone this same question. You know what? Most, or not most, but a lot, they can't describe it. They want to be successful, but they don't know what it looks like. Well, if you can't describe it, if you can't taste it, if you can't see it, you're never going to achieve it. And what you end up doing is you try to do what your buddy did, or the guy across the street, or someone else. And you start doing all kinds of stuff, hoping to feel successful instead of becoming successful. For those that I talk with that do know the answer, almost every one of them give the answer of performance, right? It's the number of hits. It's the number of wins. it's championships, it's titles, it's sales, it's performance. It's all based upon that. Now, when I played and when I first started coaching, I was that same mindset, right? I was that same belief that it was about performance. And when I started coaching, I had aspirations to coach at the Division I level. I thought I would be there in 3 or 4 years. And I believe the only way to get there was by wins, championships, titles, accolades, all of those things. And see, what that ended up doing is it caused me to be anxious. It put pressure because I don't have control over that. I mean, we have some aspect of it, but you know what? The other team has a say in it. And so when we wouldn't win, that would cause me to yell. I would look like an idiot. I would be pretty aggressive. And that created tense relationships between me and my parents. Not just my parents, but the parents of the players. It created tension between me and my players. And I really just created some compliant athletes. So I started thinking, like, what if? What if there's another level of success, right? Another measurement of success. And I'm not saying that performance isn't important. In fact, it's essential. If you don't perform, if you don't produce, you don't play, right? You're not going to coach. But the thing is what if that's the only measurement for success? How does that impact us? Well, 1, I can't feel successful until I get the hit. 2, I can't feel successful until I get the win. And then if I do that, how long does that feeling actually last? Right? It's there in an instant. One of my good friends and mentors used to tell me that, Brandon, you're only as good as your next win. I'm like, really? That's pretty awful because I just busted my tail and worked my butt off right now, and I'm not going to have success until I win again. So, but what if we take it to another level? Yeah, performance is essential, and I'll argue and say that it totally is. But what if we added another piece? What if instead of just looking at performance, we looked at my effort? What if I judge and base my success off of how much energy and how much dedication and how much sacrifice I gave? What if success was about how much value I brought to the people that I was with in this moment? What if it was about making someone better, even if that meant making them better than me? Well, I don't know if you guys know of them, but I'll give you a couple examples. How many people on this screen have ever heard of Pat Summitt? Okay, Pat Summitt, legendary basketball coach, female basketball coach at the University of Tennessee. Pat, she started coaching at the age of 22 before the sport was even sanctioned as an NCAA sport. And when she got there, halfway through her first year, the head coach quit. And she was forced, and they said, hey, okay, you're going to be the interim head coach at 22. And when she took this thing over, she didn't want to create just athletes. She wanted to use the women's basketball program as a vehicle to create leaders, to create women that are going to go out and inspire others, that are going to influence others. Like, that's what she was about. And so she drove the bus. And she was wanting women, she wanted the Tennessee Volunteers off the court as much as she wanted it on the court, right? She demanded excellence, and that's what she wanted, and she fought for it all of the time. And so what does that look like? She wanted these women to be leaders. And if you look at her record, she wins almost 1,100 games. She won 84% of her games. She won 8 national championships. But the thing that I thought was most remarkable about her is that 100% of the girls that played for her graduated with a degree. So think about that for a second. When is the last time you did 100% of anything? I know today when I worked out, I did not give 100%. Right? I did about 65 and thought that was pretty good. Or how about John Wooden? Anybody here know John Wooden? Guys from the greatest university of all time, Purdue. But then he goes on and he coaches at UCLA. This is a guy, if you showed up there and you got to play for John Wooden, he taught you how to tie your shoes and put your socks on so you wouldn't get blisters. This is a guy that created the pyramid of success about love, character, intensity, integrity, and it's gone on and impacted countless of businesses and other organizations. When you care more about the person and developing them more than the winning it becomes simply the byproduct. Now, see, John Wooden knew there was a big difference between losing and being beat. If I get beat, you're just better. But if I lose, it's because I didn't do everything I needed to. My sacrifice, my effort, my energy, it wasn't there. What does that look like? What does that translate into? 10 national championships, 7 of them in a row, 88 straight games in a row. How about Dabo Swinney from University of Clemson? 2 years before he steps in as Clemson's assistant coach, the guy was selling commercial real estate. Halfway through his second year, Bowden steps down, and he becomes the new interim head coach at University of Clemson. And no one knew who Dabo Swinney was. Never been a head coach, never been an offensive coordinator, never been a defensive coordinator. When he got that position, people thought they were crazy, but Bowden and the AD both knew there was something different about him. He was unique. Why? Because he preached what he practiced. See, Dabo Swinney is a person of faith. He's a person that had a windshield mentality. He's a guy that embraced the grind. He's a guy that did common things in uncommon ways, and he knew that's all that he could bring. See, I can't guarantee a win or a hit, but I can guarantee my effort. I can guarantee what I bring to it, and he does it all the time. This is a guy that Wednesdays are family nights. Everybody comes together and they eat dinner together as a family. Sundays are mandatory Sundays off, mandatory days off. Find another college program that gives mandatory Sundays off for their athletes and or their coaches. And I think we all know what that looks like. 2 national championships. He's played in 4 out of the last 5 championship games. But what's even more remarkable is only 4 coaches have left his program since 2015. So if it's possible, how do we do it? How can we take ourselves from where we're at, if we are in this performance mindset, and take us to a level where we can unpack it and really be successful in the moment? Well, from my past and from my research and training, I think coaches and people, I think we go through 3 different leadership levels, right? We don't all go through them. Some of us get stuck or we stay, but I think there's 3 levels that we can go through. We all start at the very first one. And this first level I call the physical level, right? The physical coach. This is a guy that was most likely a player, and then they get into, because then they're done, and it's like, okay, hey, Adam, I want you to coach now, right? Hey, Pat, I want you to coach. You're done playing, and you step into it, okay? At this level, you are great at teaching skill. You are great at organizing workouts, schedules, routine, all of that stuff. But in your mind, there's a big difference from the way you played and being able to teach others to do it. Right? So in this level, you're pretty much always just a performance coach at this level. It's about performance and it's about production, and you are a perfectionist. And a perfectionist means it's my way or it's wrong. See, these are guys or gals, these are people that usually yell quite a bit, right? These are people that are going to be screamers and yellers, and they're going to be demanding. But the thing with them, though, is early on, they'll win, right? If I go into a program and I'm a physical coach, and I go into a program and they're not winning, man, I'll turn it around right now. People will win. We will win games. And it validates that behavior. But after a short amount of time, my players become compliant, meaning they're just going to do enough to not get yelled at. How many times have you guys seen a coach that just yells at his players so much that eventually the player just looks right through him? He's not even listening. How many times you see that with kids and dads? Dads are just berating their kids after a game, and pretty soon the kids just, whatever. Like, I'm looking at you, but I'm not listening to you. Okay? And most coaches will stay right there. They won't move on. Why? Because there's too much ego involved. And when they're not winning, it's the kid's fault, it's the parent's fault, it's somebody else. But there will be some coaches that move to this next level. And this next level, I call it the mental level. And I know Darren's going to talk a lot about this. And this is that, so I won't spend a whole lot of time here. But when we get into this level, we understand that there's a whole new place to take our athletes. That what goes on in between our ears is more important than really the physical aspects. See, a mental coach, he will maximize your talent. I will get your talent to the top level because of how you're speaking and what's going on. But the problem is if we stay here, if we stay as a mental coach, I'm still in that performance base. I'm still about production. I'm still in that level. And so when we fail, I can be considered, I can look at it as a failure. So we'll be very successful. We'll win a lot of games. But there'll be very few coaches that want to go to that level of Swinney, of Summit, of Wooden. And that very third level I call the soul leader. See, at this level, I care about the development of the person. I care about your values. I know what I bring, and I bring it every day. Whether you get a hit or not, it's about how much, my success will not be determined if you get a hit, okay? My success will be about how much effort, how much time, how much commitment and sacrifice I gave to you. See, when I get into this level, I want those Tennessee Volunteers off the court, right? At this level, my actions back my words. See, people don't really care what you say. You can't talk your way out of something you've acted your way into. Our actions have to speak. So when I coached my program, we were about developing boys to morally sound men. That's what we were about. And baseball was the vehicle to get us there. And so it has to be more than words. And so one of the things that we did is we implemented this thing called nighttime, like knight in shining armor. Okay. And if there's one thing you take from this, it would be to do it, but it has to be sincere. Every day after practice, only after practice, I would bring up one of my players. Yeah, I bring up Cole Tucker, I bring up Scott Kingery, I bring up Kevin Crone or CJ Crone, and I put my arm around them. And then every single player and every single coach would have to say why they love being this guy's teammate, why they love that guy being a part of their team. And it couldn't be their physical ability. It couldn't be because you hit jacks, because you throw 90, and it couldn't be repeated. So I had 20 boys and 5 coaches talking about, you know what, Eddie, you were the first one there, right? Aiden, you always smile. Nick, you're the first one to pick me up, right? You're funny. You're just dedicated. How do you think this boy felt about the team? What type of grace do you think he gave me when I made mistakes? What do you think happened to his effort at practice when he knew that he was a part of something special, that it wasn't just about wins, that it was more than that? What do you think happened in a game when you were the underdog and more is asked from you than you thought was possible? See, when we have a team that's bought in with that, when I have 9 boys on the field that love one another and were bought in, good luck. Now, we were talented, but when we have that, you don't stand a chance. And when we get into this level, man, it's powerful. It's amazing. We take the kids' talent and they go to a whole different place. And my success is not determined by our wins or losses. It's by that. Now, as I wrap this up and get ready to turn it over to Darren, man, I want to remind us that we don't get to the soul leader so that we have a resume like Coach Summit, Coach Wooden, or Coach Sweeney. Right? We do this so that we as people, we know what it means to be successful. We know how to achieve it every single day and in every single moment. Because see, when I wrap my success around my values, when I wrap success around who I am as a person, now I'm no longer just a baseball player. See, a baseball player, that's what you do. I'm not a coach, that's what I do. See, I'm a person of my values. And when I understand that and I can bring it, that person can do whatever they want. So I'm so honored to be on here, man. I love that there's this number of people that are trying to get better and improve. I love that, Adam, you guys are putting this thing on. And I just encourage you guys all, man, keep growing. Like, don't ever settle. Keep growing. Always trying to get better. And, man, the sky's the limit. And then go find your success. So, Adam, that's all I got, buddy. Thank you very much.
Brandon, that's amazing, man. I am blown away. Really, really enjoyed that, man. Those 3 levels, the physical, the mental, and the soul leader. I always think like the players, they don't really care how much they don't care what you know until they know how much you really care, right? And I think that's what the soul leader, like all the coaches that you named off, and that's what we strive to be as coaches, to really understand who our players are. Brandon, that was fantastic. I know a lot of people got a lot out of that. So Darren is the director of mental skills for the San Francisco Giants, and he's been around baseball for a long time now. So, Darren, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thank you just for the opportunity to share, right? And I love being in a virtual room per se, but with just a group of people that want to get better. You know, I think it's exciting times right now, and rising tide lifts all ships. And so I'm excited. Brandon, thanks for sharing that. I was taking notes over here. In fact, I kind of forgot what I was going to talk about because I got so into yours. So, hey, yeah, briefly, guys, I played really wasn't recruited out of high school. So I played 2 years of junior college baseball, went and played a couple years at Arkansas Little Rock, which is a mid-major Division I university, got drafted by the San Francisco Giants, played for a bit in the minor leagues. Oh, you can see my bio there. I guess I'm going to fly through that. So coached and managed in the minor leagues for 5 years. And it was during that time when I really saw, at least in the work I was doing with the players, that the separator was the mental side. You know, everybody that gets drafted, everybody that comes in, they're all physically gifted. You know, you can watch them all in practice. You can watch them all in their workouts. You can watch them in BP, throw a bullpen. and it's lights out. It's good stuff. And then when 7 o'clock rolls around, when the lights get on, some people continue to play well, and others don't quite show up, And so I wanted to learn how to become a better coach. So I went and got a master's degree in sports psychology, and that actually led me to becoming the director of mental skills for the Giants. Rolled out their first peak performance program. I actually did that from 13 to 15. From that, went to the University of Notre Dame for a year and rolled out their mental conditioning program within athletics, where I worked with all 26 different teams, all their head coaches. Realized I took on too much there. I wasn't smart enough to realize that 26 teams and one person was a bad matchup. But had a blast, had a good time learning from a lot of great people there. And then left Notre Dame, and then I was the director of mental skills for the Seattle Mariners for 2 years, working with their major league team. And now was fortunate enough to come back with the Giants last year to be with Bruce Bochy in his final season. And, fortunate enough to stick around with Gabe Kapler and the new staff here. And hopefully we'll get back to playing soon. So this is going to be my 19th year in professional baseball. And from all that, again, there's a lot of things that go into to make a consistent player. I mean, that's what we're trying to make, are consistent players. And I think coaches want consistent players because then you can coach, right? When you know what you're going to get from the players you have, that allows you to do what you've trained to do, And so the beautiful thing about the mental game is we say this all the time, is that consistent preparation leads to consistent performance. And so it builds a way that they can perform consistently. So it allows you to coach better. And so there's tons of things we can talk about in regards to the mental game. I know Rosie talked a little bit right at the beginning about the way he talked to himself and the importance of self-talk and being intentional in the things that you tell yourself. But really tonight, I just want to really start at the beginning. I always say it's like the best place to start is at the beginning, right? But this is what I know. It's like you can't develop what you haven't defined yet. And I know that when we talk about mental skills, sometimes that's hard to define that. And so the first thing that I've learned along the way is we got to define some things that tend to fall into my lap. So this is what I generally hear from coaches. This guy can't compete, or this girl can't compete. You need to talk to him. Or this person's not very mentally tough. You need to talk to him. So right away I was already thinking like, okay, I need to define mental toughness, and I need to define what it means to compete. Because this is what I've learned, and I don't know how many people are on this call, roughly 100 or so. But my guess is if I asked everyone on this call to define compete for me, my guess is we get roughly however many people there are, that many different definitions. That's what would happen. And that's not to say anybody's wrong, but it's just not helpful when it comes to coaching. It's not helpful because when you're trying to teach a kid how to compete, you better define it for him so that you can create clarity around that. And then he can have confidence in you and confidence in himself to go and do that. All right. So I just want to share with you guys the definitions that we use, the definitions that, again, used at Notre Dame, Seattle, San Francisco, and how we've defined things and how that allows us then to coach the mental side of the game. So the first thing is essentially this, is what the heck is the mental game? Right? What is the mental game? And this is how we define it. The mental game is simply, it takes place the 15 seconds between every pitch. That's what we talk about. So when we talk about, hey, does this guy have a good mental game or a bad mental game? What we're talking about is how well does he manage the 15 seconds between every pitch? How consistent is he? What's his process look like? Okay. So that's the first thing. So know that when we talk about mental game, we've defined it so we can develop it better. Second thing, next question. Well, what the heck does a good mental game look like? So we've divided that into two buckets. Mental game, a good mental game comes down to these two things. The first thing is awareness. The second thing is readiness. So awareness really lives in this space right here. Awareness is about self-awareness, opponent awareness, and game awareness. Okay? So we say this, like awareness is about your strengths and weaknesses. You know your opponent's strengths and weaknesses and tendencies in today's game. And you know what the situation of the game is calling on you to do. All right? So that's awareness, right? So in that 15 seconds, do you know what you can and can't do? Do you know what the person you're facing, whether you're on the mound or you're in the box, you know what he's trying to do to you, and you know what his strengths and weaknesses are, and do you know what his tendencies are, meaning what's he doing today, right? Because a guy can have a great breaking ball that we read in the scouting report, but if it's not good today, then we need to eliminate that, right? And then the last is, do you know the game? Like, do you know the situation of the game? Are you letting the scoreboard tell you how to play this game? And are you understanding, first and third tie ball game, slow runner at the plate, and you're a middle infielder, and there's one out, you can play back a little bit because you can turn that double play ball. Or maybe it's a little bit faster of a runner, and you got to cheat in or whatever that is. So you do know the situation of the game. And the second piece to that, when you talk about a good mental game, is readiness. Now, readiness is simply this. You have a consistent process that allows you to fully commit to an external target. Now, the reason why we say external target, there's tons of sports psychology research that supports external focus for an athlete is more important, yields better performance than internal focus. Now, what's that difference? External simply means I'm focused on something outside of myself. So as a hitter, surprise, surprise, I'm focused on the baseball, right? So it's like I'm focused on, as opposed to focusing on where my hands are or getting my foot down or whatever. Or maybe I'm focused on direction of field. Like I'm trying to drive the ball to center field. I'm trying to drive the ball to right center. Okay, so that's what external focus would look like. For a pitcher, it would be the mitt, obviously, right? Or maybe he's trying to throw a breaking ball off the guy's front hip or off the mask or whatever. So we talk about having a consistent process that allows them to fully commit to an external target, okay? And we say this all the time, like you got to be willing to lose a plan A. You got to be willing to lose a plan A. Hitters, for all of us that have ever stood in a batter's box, we know this, right? We know, and I've done it more than most. It's like, I want to hit the fastball. I can't wait to hit the fastball, but I know he's got a good changeup. So I'm like, all right, so be ready for that changeup, but don't miss the fastball. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. We've all been there, right? So I'm not fully committed to anything, and I'll tell you, I shared this story with Rosie and Mish the other day, but I was sitting with Willie Mays one time. This is a while back. This is when I was still playing. I wish I was smart enough to figure out what he was talking about. And I asked him, I said, Willie, I was a switch hitter when I played. So I said, hey, Willie, man, I have a hard time hitting the changeup. I got a lot of changeups. How do you hit that thing? And he goes, you know what I do? I look for it and I hit it. And I'm like, well, that was real helpful, like waste of time. I wasn't smart enough to realize what he was saying was like, he sells out to it. He sells out to the change. So he's willing, to sell out, look for a changeup, fully commit to that external target. And then if the guy throws a fastball, you tip your cap and you walk back, or you try to find a way to fight it off. But I wouldn't be willing to lose a plan A, and I would get in trouble that way. Okay. So that's what a good mental game looks like: awareness and readiness. Now, the last two, I'm going to talk about mental toughness, right? We all want mentally tough athletes. And so again, same thing. If I asked all of you to define it, we'd have 82 different definitions, and nobody would probably be wrong. But again, not helpful. So that being said, mental toughness, how we define it is simply this. It's the discipline to focus on your process when your career depends on your results. That's what it means to be mentally tough. It's like, and it's kind of like, and you think about like what Brandon was talking about, like the process of like developing men, the process of like developing high moral kids that have a great set of values. Like that's a process, right? So do you have the discipline to put all your energy and all your effort and all your focus into developing great men or great women that have character, even though your career depends on your results, right? Do you have that? And so one thing I like to say is like, there's a difference between what matters and what's helpful. A lot of times our contracts are dependent on our performance. So that matters. But what's helpful is developing the person, And so anyway, so mental toughness, that's the discipline to focus on your process when your career depends on your results. Second thing is, what's it mean to compete? Again, this is my definition. This is the definition we use. Doesn't mean you have to take it on, but I just want to give it to you to give you some place to start. Again, because if you can't define it, you can't develop it. Okay. And so this is what it means for us to compete, regardless of your circumstances. That's how it starts. Regardless of your circumstances, you're fully committed to a plan to help our team win the game based on the score, the situation, your strengths and weaknesses, and your opponent's tendencies. That's what it means to compete. So why that's important? Because then when I'm coaching a guy, or when the hitting coach comes up to him and says, hey man, you're not competing. It's not a personal attack on their ego. We can break that down and say, what part? What part is he not competing? Well, we were up 10 and he hits leadoff and he's up there swinging from his rear because he's trying to hit homers, And so it's like, okay, so regardless of the situation, so he wasn't playing according to his strengths and weaknesses, right? He was just up there being selfish and having a selfish at bat. So that's what we can say, like, hey, you weren't competing in that bat. So when we talk about the mental game again, it gets so ethereal and so conceptual sometimes that's hard to grab. And so that was my goal tonight, is just to share with you, hey, here's a way to take some really important things that sometimes can feel intangible and make them tangible. And then we can attach behaviors to them. And again, and for all you coach out there, like maybe you have some core values in your program that it's like, commitment or grit or resilience. And those are all awesome words. I would just encourage you to define it, but define it with some behaviors that you can see, and define it with behaviors that they can see too as teammates. And then you point those out so they know exactly what it means to be insert word there, right? Resilient. So again, mental game takes place at 15 seconds between every pitch. So when we're talking about guys, mental game, that's what we're talking about, how well you manage that time. Second thing is, what's a good mental game look like? It's about awareness and readiness. Are you aware of the game awareness, self-awareness, and opponent awareness? Do you have those? And then are you ready to commit to an external target, fully committed every time, every pitch? Mental toughness is the discipline to focus on your process when your career depends on your results. And then what's it mean to compete? Is that regardless of your circumstances, you're fully committed to a plan to help our team win the game based on the score, the situation, your strengths and weaknesses, and your opponent's tendencies. I just want to thank you, Rosie. That's it for me. I would love to take questions, by the way, but thanks for the time, man.
Darren, that's fantastic, man. I really love what both of you guys said. I mean, the thing that stands out is that you guys just define something, right? Brandon, you define success, right? Or you have to make sure that you do define success, or where are you going? Where's your direction, right? And then Darren, you define what a good mental game is, right? We have to understand, I mean, especially young coaches. Me, I'm a young coach. Like Brandon said, I'm probably more on the physical side of coaching. There's a lot that I have to learn. How am I going to learn that if I'm not defining it? Right? I have to understand what it takes. So I need to look to people that have already attained the mental level of coaching and then get to that soul leader. So Brandon, I was going to ask you, the soul leader coach, they have to embody those two other ones too, right? The physical and mental. They have to know how to or delegate it to somebody, right?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, when you get to that, it's like you've really all but mastered the two previous to that. Like you've got the physical, the skills, you've got that. You're working the mental side, or like you just said, when I get to the soul leader, like, man, I want to surround myself with coaches that know more than I do. Right? I mean, like I want to surround myself with people like Pat Mish. I mean, my staff in Arizona was silly. I mean, Jay Bell was my infield coach. Pat Mish is my pitching coach. Joe Mather was my outfield coach. I mean, all of these guys are big. It's silly who was on my staff. And so if I'm a physical coach, I'm intimidated by those guys being around me because I don't want to appear to be dumb. But when I get to the soul leader, it's like, go, Jay, go take the infielders, please. Go work with them. Go do your stuff. I'll work on the character. I'll work on that. So you can't neglect the physical and the mental side and just skip there. That's got to be the foundational piece when you're talking baseball wise. So
right. And so I was going to thank you, Brandon. That's a great point, great addition. I was going to ask Kevin Kuzminoff and Aaron Nakula. They've been coaching for a little bit. Nuke, you've been coaching a little bit longer than Kuz, but do you see that? Could you tell when a player is not aware or they're not ready, they're not mentally tough, and they're not like competitive? Nuke, do you see that, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think you can somewhat recognize when a player steps in and he's lacking confidence, or like Darren and Brendan say that they're not aware of their weaknesses. We can sometimes get caught inside a bubble and we're not self-aware of our strengths, and maybe we're not self-aware of our weaknesses, and we need the proper coaching, the direction, the guidance in order to make that happen. I mean, like these guys said, our job as coaches is trying to maximize the potential of each and every athlete that we encounter. And in order to do so, it's not about performance. It's about relationship and building that connection with each and every athlete that we come across. One thing that we do in the Oakland A's organization is we require all of our coaching staff to create a personal leadership model, something that guides them, something that provides direction in terms of how they're going to touch each athlete on a daily basis through little interactions, little connections throughout the course of the day. And that's how you build the relationships. That's how you connect with players. That's how you build that trust, that credibility. And it allows the player to open up. It brings down the wall. The player can open up. Now you can engage in dialogue. And then the players will be honest. They'll be honest with you because you've built that trustworthy relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a week or two. It's small victories, small wins along the way. But building that relationship, building that trust is crucial to allow the player to maximize his potential and to be honest with himself and be self-aware. And then you can start to see the progression take place.
You know, I really like how you say like the small victories, especially on the coaching side. But like for me as a player, that's what I really thrived on. You know, even if it was taking that back foot slider from Clayton Kershaw with a 1-2 count on me, like it was a small victory. I might have struck out that same at bat, but I was like, I took his nastiest pitch, the pitch that he was supposed to get me out on, and I kind of celebrated that in my own way. In that sense, it's the small victories. Kuz, I know you've been coaching for a couple of years. Just if you had any insight on the mental side of the game with or just talking to the players, building that relationship, like Nuke said, it's building that relationship with them.
To second that, what Nuke said, you know, we did some leadership models within the Oakland A's organization, and my leadership model was based on relationships with people, more specifically players, and developing that trust. And I think it's good that I've been in the trenches, and maybe some players are in the trenches. We're in the trenches together, and us as coaches should have that player's back. And we should do everything we can to maximize the potential of that player, just like Nuke said. I think that baseball is a game of failure. It's a tough game. I think that if we can remain positive and give the work that these players need, give them the reps that they need, give them the feedback, whether it's through communication or video, and just to give that player the confidence, you know, because it's not an easy game. Everybody would be doing this game if it was playing this game if it was easy. It's not, right? And so I think the relationship side is very important in talking through with players. And yes, Rosie, this is my second year with the Oakland A's. And I really had to take a step back and really think about how I hit a baseball when I played. Because, you know, after a while, it's like maybe for you in defense or hitting as well, it's like you just went out and you knew what you needed to work on because you've taken thousands and thousands and thousands of reps, which that's what it takes to become a collegiate player, a minor league player, a major league baseball player. And so I had to take a step back. How do you hit a baseball? And so I had to take a big step back and really break it down. And then even teach a little bit of infield. It's like, move the feet, you know, right, left catch, right, left throw. You know, it's like, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, we got to back up, you know? So I think it's really evaluating and dissecting that and explaining it in a way so these players understand it.
That's a great point. I want to go back to you to talk about like confidence and how these coaches need to instill that or help you understand what confidence is. I have a good story back in 2012. I kept getting sent up and down between Oakland and Sacramento AAA. And whenever they sent me down, I was always fine. Like, all right, I'll take a little failure. You know, I'll come back, bust my tail, get back up to the big leagues. And I never say anything in the meetings. I'm fine. But talking about a soul leader, Bob Melvin, right? I was fortunate enough to play for him. Pulls me into the office as I'm getting sent down to AAA. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to say something here. You know, I'm like, I'm Bo Mel. I wish you guys had more confidence in me. And without hesitation, Bo Mel says, before we could have more confidence in you, you got to have more confidence in yourself. And I'm like, whoa, smokes. I think a lot of coaches would have said, I feel bad for you, Rosie. Like, I know, like, go back. It's not my choice. It's the front office or whatever. But Bell Mel told me how it was. And that relationship, that trust that we built, was just that communication was everything to me. But it was just eye-opening for me. I think we're going to open it up for questions. I know there's a lot of people on.
Hey, Rosie, I see a couple questions on the chat. Can I go ahead and grab that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Darren. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just from Mary, it looks like real quick, what it means to compete. Again, it's, regardless of the circumstances, you're fully committed to a plan to help our team win the game based on the score, the situation, your strengths and weaknesses, and your opponent's tendencies. And then one right above that from John Olson, he talked about hearing people yell to reset after a bad play or a bad pitch. Thoughts on that, and any tips on how to help players get ready for in-game mental toughness, which I think is an awesome question. You think about, so this is what I love when you talk about like mental toughness being the discipline to focus on your process when your career depends on your results. That means you have to have a process, right? I think a lot of times coaches will be like, hey man, you got to focus on the process. And like, well, what is that? And then we don't have anything. So in between pitches, this is what we talk about. We talk about a funnel. Okay. And this is from Ken Reviza. I got this from him a long time ago. And the process that's in that funnel is 4 steps. And so the first one, which is kind of like the big part of the funnel, that's learn. So let's say you take a pitch, boom, you take a pitch as a hitter, step out of the box. There's some learning going on. And the learning is, were you on time? What did that pitch? Did you see the pitch well? Maybe reevaluating the situation. Maybe the ball had more movement than you thought, or there's something going on that happens pretty quick that you're learning on what you just saw, what you just took in. Again, and kind of that, scouting report, all that stuff's kind of going through your head. So there's a lot of thoughts in the learn part, right? Then the second part of that funnel is control. Okay, control simply means, doesn't mean suppress, but it just means to be in control. So a lot of guys will use maybe like a deep breath is probably the most common one you'll see. A lot of guys will stare maybe at a spot in their bat and use a deep breath, but it's something to bring you into the present moment, okay? Because our heart and our minds are connected. And so what happens is when our thoughts speed up, our heart rate speeds up, or vice versa. When our heart rate speeds up, our thoughts speed up, okay? So the best way to slow your thoughts down or to work down the funnel is to take a deep breath, slow your heart rate down, okay? So you've learned, you've paid attention to the pitch, the situation, whatever. Now you're in control of yourself. Then step 3 is a plan. And a plan is as simple and as clear a plan that you can make, because that's what's going to give you confidence, right? A simple plan could be like hard line drive over the second baseman's head. And this is where the external target comes in, or it's just like see the ball up, but the plan has to be about something you want to do, not about something you want to avoid, right? So a terrible plan would be like, don't chase a ball in the dirt, right? So just real quick hitter, it's like our brain cannot comprehend the word don't, right? So if I told everyone on this call, like, don't think about a pink tiger, right? We're all thinking about a pink tiger now, right? Because the brain just grabs onto the pink tiger. Or I could tell you, say, hey, put a blue elephant in front of the pink tiger. Now you've got a blue elephant in front of your pink tiger. I know it. So anyway, so when you think about a plan, it's like a plan is just a simple like, hey, drive the ball to center field or back to the middle, whatever it is for you. And then the last step is commit. Commit. Now this is like the separator, going from plan to commit, right? And that's that selling out. So that's why it has to be simple, because you can't commit to something that's not simple. And generally guys will use like a trigger word, just like a attack, drive it. I know there's a few pitchers that I've worked with in the past. Well, I can tell you like a James Paxton is just going to go throw it as hard as I can. And that works for him, right? Everybody's got something different, but they're going to say it and then pitch comes. So it's learn, control, plan, commit, and it's a funnel process. And so that's what it looks like to focus on your process. And then you can actually play the game one pitch at a time that way, because you actually have a way to separate them.
Nice, Darren. I want to touch on that a little bit with in Cleveland, in AAA. I was in AAA, and I needed to talk to the sports psychologist a lot. And she helped me set up a plan. She actually had me write it down, like word for word, what I'm going to do in my first at bat, or whatever at bat I wanted to choose, at least one at bat, write out a plan exactly what was going to happen, and whether it was 2 or 3 sentences long. But I got really clear in my mind of what I wanted to do. see the ball good out of the hand, see it all the way to my barrel, hit it off the bat, flies over the shortstop's head, lands in the grass in the outfield. I'm standing on second base. And so she coached me through that, and it was a game changer. I went from a big time slump to playing the way I knew how to play. So I like having that plan is huge to have.
Adam, what you just shared right there made me think. If you think about all of us, right, when there's clarity, we get into action, right? If I just say, hey, Darren, go work out next week. All right, well, the chances of Darren working out next week are pretty slim. It's like, hey, Darren, when are you working out next week? Monday? Okay, cool. When? At noon? What workout are you going to do? Orange Theory, spin class? Perfect. Okay. Now the chances of him doing that on Monday at noon are really high because we're clear. Right. We give directions too vague, and then we get frustrated people don't do it. Well, if I just said, hey, work out next week, that could be Monday, Tuesday. We have to provide clarity, and most people will get into action that way.
That's a fantastic – thank you so much, Brandon. Hey, Chaka, you have a question? I see Chaka. Eddieman Chaka. You got to unmute. I'll unmute you. Go ahead,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question for Darren. I know we talk a lot about the mental skills. I'm also part of the minor league system for the Oakland A's. There's a lot of kids that work on the mental skills. They talk about the funnel on the 15 seconds. Can you talk a little bit about how important the breathing part comes into that? Because some kids don't really understand that. I know as a coach, sometimes just taking a big breath on a situation and think about, okay, what am I going to do next? Who am I bringing from the bullpen? I think just taking a big breath or inhale, exhale, and kind of regroup. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know maybe it's a little bit off, but talk about how important the breathing part comes into that with the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Eddie, thanks for that. And the crazy thing about the breath is it's because we do it all the time, we forget about it, right? I mean, it's such a simple tool to tap into that I think we just overlook it, right? And so again, kind of like we talked about earlier, is like how the breath slows our heart rate down, which slows our thoughts down. And so we talk a lot about, sure, the game gets a little faster as you go up and you advance. Like we all know that, right? Balls hit a little bit harder, guys maybe tick faster, whatever. But when we feel like the game is speeding up on us, the game is not speeding up on us. Our thoughts are speeding up on us. So it feels like the game is speeding up on us. And then we lack clarity, right? And then we don't have confidence. And then we're kind of chasing everything, or we lock ourselves up one way or the other. And so the breath is I think the only way to really get guys to really buy into it and really make it a part of their in-between pitch process is to have them practice it. Because if you think about BP or you think about a bullpen session, right? BP, it's like get your 7 swings, get your 5 swings, whatever, rake and get out. Did you see that one? I crushed it, or whatever. Or bullpen, we're sometimes coaching in between pitches or whatever. And versus like really being intentional and, taking that breath. Now, BP takes a lot longer when you do that. I can tell you it's like, oh, geez, he's going to work his 15-second process in between. I just want to flip him the ball, But I think it's important to separate time where it's like, hey, like we call them funnel rounds. Like, hey, we're going to have a funnel round now. Like it's going to be just like a game. You're getting 3 pitches. If you smoke the first one, you like it, you're done. You know what I mean? But if it's not what you're looking for, take it, step out, go through your thing, and then get back in it. And so the breath to me is, again, because it's so simple and it's always available, I think we forget it. But I think we have to practice it. And it's the best way to slow the game down, which allows you to compete with clarity and confidence.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, we could definitely use all that information and insight when we're coaching for sure. Darren, thank you. Bill, we're gonna have you. Just one last question from Bill. Bill, you still on?
Yep, we're here.
Okay. Yep.
So I have a couple. Just a quick one. First one. So youth baseball, higher level youth baseball. We have 13, 14, 15-year-olds that we work with. They understand the mental part of the game. The problem we run into with them is they get to a point where their frustration boils over and they explode and you can't pull them back from the ledge. So they're doing well. They get through it, but it just keeps building and building and building. But once they get past it, they can't come back. So what are the best tips to deal with the kids on that?
I'll let if anybody else wants to take it, Brandon or Darren, if you guys have anything on that, I'll let you guys go. If not, I can address that.
I'll take a crack at it. I don't spend a lot. I mean, I have a 12-year-old, so who plays sports, baseball included. The first thing I would ask is, like, do the parents understand the mental game? Because I think it's one thing for the kids to understand it, but then if the parents don't understand the importance of how much emphasis we put on process over results, then I think a lot of times parents generally create a lot of tension because they're obviously result focused.
Right.
Is one. And then the second thing I would consider, like, as kids become teenagers, the last part of their brain that's developed is the frontal lobe, and that part of the brain really is the thing that projects into that's the part of our brain that tells us, like, hey, what I'm doing today is going to impact me tomorrow, right? So maybe I shouldn't do that today. That's why we see teenagers do a lot of dumb things in the moment, and you're like, well, did you not think that would happen to you? And then they're like, no. And, so it's like, again, I'm not trying to let them off the hook like it's not their fault, but I think just being mindful of, like, they're going to be hyper reactive on results and fear, right? And emotion is always going to, emotion's always going to trump in a teenager, just because they haven't developed that part of their brain that's like, hey, take a deep breath, slow down. And again, that's why reminding them as much as you can to take the breath for those guys, just because they don't have that part of their brain fully developed. And that's not really even developed till like 22 to 25, just depending on the individual. So then whoever else wants to take it, that's what I would add.
Darren, that's awesome. And to piggyback on that, there's a couple things. One, if you look at kids want to please their parents, right? They're people pleasers and they want to do that. So I would go back even further and just say, Bill, like, well, if we go a hitter in a cage, right? What do you recognize in the cage? What do you reward in the cage? Do we only get excited when your son hammers one, or do we love the swing? Right? Do we recognize the swing and the beauty in the swing, regardless if he makes great contact or not? Because I had several players, they rake in the cage, and then they get into a game and they're tentative, and they're not swinging the pitches, or they swing like it's a wet noodle and they're just hitting duck farts everywhere. And then you have to go back, well, what am I recognizing? With my son, I praise his swing all the time. I don't even care if he hits it, because I want him in the game and I want him to swing the bat, and I want it hard. And then if he misses or does anything, he's fired up. He's swung out of his shoes. Like, dude, that's awesome, right? So what are we praising? And so back to maybe what Darren was saying, the parents, what are they praising? But at the same time, like the coaches as well, how are we responding to that athlete instead of reacting to that athlete? Because if my player's heated and I get heated, there it goes, right? Now it goes off.
We literally try to, both myself and the other coach, and we try to coach without emotion at all. And it basically, because obviously, they're immediately going to see what we are. They're going to react to how we react. We basically coach with zero emotion when it comes to that. Time for emotion is in practice and in the cage there. When we're on the field, it's time to, do what we practiced and, get through the game. And part of it on our side too, we try to coach the parents, into understanding that, when you're done, obviously travel baseball, you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 games, back to back to back that you're playing here. And that's mentally stressful on kids. The last thing we try to get them to do is, you get in the car, the last thing you talk about is baseball. You talk about anything but baseball. So, but that's the one thing we run into with kids a lot of times is, these kids are competing at an extremely high level. It's way different than playing, your basic rec leagues or your little leagues. When these kids are playing at this level and they are talented, there's a certain level of expectation, and they do have a tendency to get themselves to the point where they kind of go over that edge, and it's hard to get them back. Once they kind of cross it, it's really hard to pull them back from that. And it's next couple of practices you get into, you can notice that the mental side of things has kind of fallen apart.
I think it was Anthony Rizzo's dad. I think there was a story I read in the article I heard on an interview, but they would always, even if they had a bad game, they'd always go get ice cream or do something, go to the water, or do something positive. Like let's burn off this frustration. But Harry, did you have a comment to make on that, on Bill's question?
Nah, I just had a question myself. Just whenever you guys are.
All right, yeah, okay. We'll take your question and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
How do you start building confidence back in yourself after you've come back from an injury?
So one thing that I've seen along the way is that when guys return to play from injury, they've spent a lot of time, and especially guys that are like TJ or maybe like a serious shoulder injury, but they've spent so much time focused on how they feel, right? So when we go back to that internal and external focus, like you think about when you're returning from injury, every time you go out and throw the ball, every throw you're like, how'd that feel? How's that feel, right? So you're focused internally the whole time, or you get done playing catch and then the trainer or the coach is like, hey, how did you feel? Did you feel good? You know, and so everybody's talking about how you feel. Well, that creates this new habit of thinking, this internal focus. And so the fact that our brain can only pay attention to one thing at a time, a lot of injured athletes, when they return to play, they don't get back to competing at such a high level right away because they haven't developed, they haven't got back to that external focus again, if that makes sense, you know? And I would say the other thing in regards to confidence, like, and I know I feel like I'm in a small boat in this regards, but I tell guys this all the time. It's like, when we think we need confidence to compete, what happens is we're focused on how we feel and not on what has to be done. So I say, instead of searching for confidence, search for a clear plan. Does that make sense? So a clear plan could be like good fastball at the knees, or, you know, slider off the plate, or whatever it is. But because what happens is as a result of a clear plan, then you get commitment to do that. And then the confidence tends to follow. But when we're searching for confidence, now we're searching for a feeling, and then we're not focused on what we have to do. So I'd say, man, get externally focused and search for a good, clear plan more than confidence, because confidence will come when you take care of those other two things.
Darren, thank you so much. That's a great way to end. Put an exclamation mark on it.
Hey,
Brandon.
Roses.
Yes, Emo.
Hey, man, I just got to say this. I'm getting old because all these guys you're bringing on this webinar, I saw Darren play in San Jose in 2005. I'm scrolling through this book, and Alex Henshaw's on there. I tried to acquire that guy year after year. We needed some left-hand. So, man, Darren, I might have to call you. I'm calling Andrew Bailey right now, and I'm telling Bailey to get on the line. I had him too. So I'm starting to really feel old, and I was on the side of the guy in 2012. Remember? Me and Bushy sent you to the big leagues, and Skipper sent you back down. So I'm starting to sweat because I'm seeing all the guys that, Hennessy's on here. I mean, just guys. It's probably because I stunk and I was coaching in A-ball at 31 or 32 years old when these guys were playing, and I saw them in San Jose and Pat Mish. So you're killing me, Rosie, but I appreciate it. And Darren and Brandon, great job tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Emo, thank you. Guys, if you have any more questions, you guys feel free to email me, and I can relay them on if you want to ask anybody else on the webinar. Just email me at adam@baseballutility.com. And guys, next week we are super excited. We have a representative from AXBAT going to be here, and they're going to show us some hitting drills that we can do at home. And they have a really neat weighted bat program, and they're going to give us a little introduction of how they did the study, the biomechanical study as well. So a lot to learn from AXBAT next week. So thank you all for being on. Thank you for the support. Really appreciate it.